Are Republicans trying to take away women's right to vote?
We'll talk about voting rights and more today on The Undercurrent. Good morning.
Good morning. We're here.
You know, we have this under the sea theme, and I'm very, what do they call it? Is it agoraphobia, where you're afraid of the water? Or there's some form of
hydrophobia, isn't it?
I thought that's when you had rabies.
Oh, okay.
Because you couldn't drink water while you have rabies. That is so
agoraphobia
weird.
Is when you're, I think, afraid to be out and about.
Oh yeah, that's right. Maybe it's aquaphobia. Is it aquaphobia? But there's one that's particular for like deep under the ocean. Like, yeah. You know, where you're like, it's all dark and you can't see nothing, but you're surrounded by water. You know, you look up, you can barely see the thing, and then it's like God knows what's down below you. So I don't want to be on a cruise ship and that thing get hit by a rogue wave and, you know, all that stuff. But I heard that's like you have like kind of, now they have lifeboats that kind of look like little baby submarine type things. You get in there and you seal up and you ever been on a cruise ship?
I have been on cruise ships, and those little tiny things make me nervous. After that one guy took that sub down and everybody died. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
not my thing. I have been on cruise ships, and I enjoy them. These days with, I don't know. I mean, with all the norovirus and all that, I just, I think I'm going to be good and just stay at a regular hotel.
Yeah, I know, right? If you go on those ones in the Gulf of Mexico, you could end up pooping in plastic bags too. Although that's what I call the weekend. Wait, what? We got Peoples here. What's up, John? Good to see you. Willie's here. Kate's here too. Look at Kate. We got our Canadian contingent here.
We do.
CBC voter there saying hi to
Willie Bragg had a great show last night, by the way, folks.
He did.
If you didn't catch it, go on over to Willie's channel and take a look. We've got just some really fantastic people in this space and want to promote them a lot more. We had our great show last Friday, our celebration with our friends. And I mean, it was just great to get to talk to everybody, but also, do check that out and check out these creators because they're doing really good stuff.
Yeah. And what's great, as small channels, it's more of a community oriented type shows too, because the creators, have the time and they can look and see who's in the chats, and react to questions and stuff like that. I think that's very important when it comes to these kind of shows like that, where you can connect with your community, hopefully bring in more people, like kind of a word of mouth thing too. We do promoting kind of on other people's channels and throughout various platforms, but it's nice to get the word of mouth in here. What's up, Chuck? Good to see you, buddy.
And you had Lucy on last week on Extra Bulla for one of your interviews, one-on-one interviews, and she was talking about where a lot of so-called independent media people may not be as independent as they would like you to think. And just, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay attention to the people that she mentioned, but there are also a lot of people who are really doing this as a labor of love who may not have that kind of financing. And so we're free to curate the stories that we report on. Yeah,
definitely. It's, I always tell people, just be skeptical of, who you get your news from, present company included,
yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's why we put the links to the stories in our Substack so that it doesn't sound like, we're misconstruing whatever the story is for any sort of personal bias. You can read it right there in the story. And that's what we're doing verbatim, is reading it and, commenting on it. We're giving our 2 cents, our life experiences, allow us to comment on that kind of stuff. Especially if we're familiar with the subjects at hand too. So, I like it. I think it's very
I think like it too. And if you want, you can go into our links under our show, and you'll find the Substack link in there. Click on it, and that'll take you to the show notes. You can also subscribe; it'll come in the mail before your email before the show starts. It's a reminder. I've also got a link to the interview with Lucy in there, so you can actually just click on that and watch that interview. I think it's really worth your time to do that.
Yeah. And Lucy is one of these people. She's like all about the research, right?
Yeah.
And she tells you in the interview, she said, look, this isn't like some deep, dark secrets I dug up, from the bottom of the ocean. These are all online. You could, she mentioned like a lot of people just don't want to Google it. She said, I took the time to Google it and found all this stuff. And I'm like,
yeah,
information's there. It's just whether you want to
read it.
Yeah. Or you want to actually search for it yourself.
Or you want to believe it. And that's another thing too, which we've learned.
Yeah. Some people do not want to believe the truth, especially about some of the people who claim to be journalists and you claim to be doing good work in this space. We're not judging or anything, but it's just we put the information out there. She does too. And it's like, judge for yourself. So we have plenty of news today. Buffering. What is this buffering? Are we buffering? Kate, are you eating your magic mushrooms again? I know she means well sometimes, but she may be right. We were buffering the other night at the beginning of the secret show. I don't know what was up with that. It was fine. It seemed fine on this end. I use this program that tells you that if something is like off kilter in my programs that I use, but it could be YouTube screwing around as they normally do. So, but let's get to the newsy news. Let me put this up here. It's a riptide right from the headlines. This has been going on for a few days, but up in Oregon, poor folks up there. So authorities arrest arson suspect in connection with one of the devastating, this is Washington, I'm sorry, Spokane wildfires. Authorities on Monday arrested a 37-year-old man they suspect of starting one of the devastating wildfires tearing through eastern Washington state. As many residents were left wondering if their homes had survived, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office said 37-year-old Aaron F. Farinacci was arrested and booked on suspicion of arson in connection with the Old Trails fire. He's being held on a $1 million bond. It wasn't immediately clear if he had an attorney who could speak on his behalf. The fire that sparked Saturday is one of several burning around Spokane, the state's second largest city. They are among the most destructive blazes in state history, together destroying at least 700 structures and forcing roughly 67,000 people to evacuate. There's some of the pictures right there. It's devastating. Earlier Monday, some residents returned to find their homes leveled by wildfires that erupted across a parched landscape over the weekend, covering yards and charred debris. In some cases, only chimneys were left standing. There's nothing to say, Miriam Sim said Monday, as she and her husband Daniel survived the ruins of the home where they had lived since 2005. At our age, do we want to rebuild? Her husband asked. Well, that's a good question. I heard this too on Black Bear News. Kevin was talking about this, and he has like kind of a personal interest in these wildfires too, because his house was burned down in the LA fires, as some of you out there may know. And of course, he's part of one of our mutual aid folks down below. In our links there, if you want to check that out and help him out, and all our mutual aid folks as well, they could use the help, or at least share out the links. That would be good. The earth is changing. The earth is getting hotter, and in some places it's getting drier. You could say, well, it's not man-made. Well, it's kind of a little of both. You got the natural earth processes, and then you also have what industry is doing to kind of help accelerate it a little bit. Just think of like a house that just got struck by lightning, right? And caught fire. And then somebody comes along with a bucket of gasoline, says, oh, this didn't start it. well, it ain't helping it either. So,
Yeah.
you know, positive vibes going out to the folks out there in
Yeah.
Washington State.
It's, it's happening. We've been, it seems like every show we bring it up. It's either here or in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and yeah, especially Europe. Europe is not used to these extremely warm temperatures that's going
they
on
really
over
aren't.
there.
Yeah.
And so they're having to make changes too. Like a lot of them don't have central air and heat. Well, central air anyway. And I know German hospitals don't have air conditioning. They do have ventilation systems, but normally they just open a window if it's too hot. But this is not, you can't just open a window and cool things off kind of weather that's happening.
And in hospitals, they have machines running. I mean, they've got, they've got lights, they've got, they're doing procedures, they have machines running. That's all going to generate heat, and it's just going to make things even worse for everybody.
Yeah, indeed. Hang on just a second. I got a little something going on here.
I don't know how many hospitals here in the U.S. Still aren't air conditioned. I mean, I know up until, not so long ago, Cook County Hospital, now it's Stroger, was in its own facility, old facility. I don't think it had central air. So I'd be curious to find out how many hospitals and nursing centers and whatnot in the U.S. don't have air conditioning.
Yeah. Just like Europe, the northern states may have to change a lot of the way they do things.
Yeah.
And well, especially if these heat domes keep popping up, like this is the third one, I think. A record challenging heat dome is about to bake the West this weekend. So a couple have hit the Midwest and the Northeast, and of course the South always just gets baked. It doesn't matter. Heat dome, no heat dome. It's always just hot and miserable down there. An unusually strong heat dome will scorch much of the western United States this weekend, bringing the hottest temperatures so far this year to tens of millions from California to Canada. Dozens of record highs are expected to fall in at least 12 states in the West through the weekend, with around 40 million people under heat alerts. High temperatures will climb between 10 to nearly 20 degrees hotter than they should be, even for the peak of summer. From Southern California to the Northern Rockies and Plains from Friday through Tuesday. Death Valley, California is forecast to see the hottest temperature of this heat wave, a blistering 126 degrees. I think Death Valley has the record for the hottest temperature in the United States, maybe even North America. That is a hot place. This is the latest in a spate of record-breaking heat waves that have affected the U.S. and Europe simultaneously this summer. Human-caused climate change is making heat waves like this one more likely to occur, as well as more intense and longer-lasting, as studies have shown. Particularly strong and slow-moving heat domes are also possibly becoming more common as the world warms, though this is an area of active research. The heat dome responsible for this heat wave may also set records for its intensity in parts of Southern California and Arizona. Heat domes act like a lid on a pot, trapping and enhancing hot air beneath them. This one is expected to reach even higher in the atmosphere than typical, and that means it can trap even more air below it, raising the ceiling on just how extreme surface temperatures can get. More than 12 million people across the Southwest, Mountain West, and Northern Great Plains are under a level 4 of 4 extreme heat risk Saturday and Sunday. With an additional 12 million people under a level 3 of 4 major heat risk. Heat at this level will affect anyone without access to cooling and hydration, according to the National Weather Service. The weekend heat may just be the first wave of extreme temperatures from this heat dome as it settles in for the long haul, with more hot weather predicted in large parts of the West beginning tomorrow. That would be August 6th. By August 4th, around 10% of the continental U.S. will record the hottest day of the year so far. Yeah, it's been kicking up pretty good here. It's only 70. Well, it's only 80 right now, but it's only 11 o'clock. Give it a couple, 3 more hours. It's going to be toasty. So if you're in those areas of the United States, please hydrate, as our buddy Ed says, and Chuck says it too. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And if you ain't got to go out, don't do it.
Yeah.
Try and stay in the shade if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, this is another topic we have talked a lot about on this show. Uncle Warren, I will only repeat what I've said before. Hypothermia and heat exhaustion or heat stroke are two sides of the same coin when it comes to your ability to make good judgments. Body temperature, one way or the other, too cold or too hot, affects your ability to make judgments, which may mean that once you're in that state, it is too late to protect yourself because you can't make the judgments that you need to take care of yourself. You need to make the decisions before you're exposed to the high temperatures, and whether that means going to a cooling center or staying at a friend's house or going to a library or a church or something where they will allow you to sit and work. Go ahead and do that. Make sure that you're carrying water with you, and understand that at some point, temperatures, particularly when you're talking about those wet bulb temperatures, get to the point that even if you're totally healthy, even if you're in the shade, even if you're hydrating, it's too hot for the human body. And you need to take steps to stay out of that.
John says, so funny, hundreds of U.S. bases in Germany with plenty of AC. That's right. They had to import it. Yeah, we got to have our AC, America. Uh-oh, they're coming to get me. I hear the sirens out there. And
coming to take me away.
Oh, you're coming, huh? Okay, all right. Oh, shit, I forgot to do this. Hang on a second. There we go. So speaking of hot races in the primaries, but I want to focus on Missouri here just for a moment. That Missouri voters have rejected income tax phase out and the initiative petition changes. That was the one, this Amendment 4 I was talking about on Morning Extra the other day. And they both got voted down big time. So Missouri voters rejected major Republican priorities on Tuesday as proposal to eliminate the income tax and change the way initiative petition majorities are counted, lost by large margins across the state. Amendment 4 is the one where you have citizens who are trying to bring up ballot initiatives, right? They bring them up and then the whole state votes on it en masse, right? And the majority, I think it's a majority. I don't think you have to have 60%, but I think the majority of the people who vote for it, it'll pass. If they don't, it doesn't pass. And what they wanted to do was have majorities in each individual voting district in the state, and they all, for something to pass, all of them had to have a majority in all of them. And as gerrymandering goes, a lot of thick Republican districts, a lot of thick Democratic districts, and but that lost 80-20, while Amendment 5 fared worse, losing 83 to 16%. And Amendment 5 was basically they wanted to phase out state income tax, and which would open up raising sales taxes, which of course would not benefit a lot of working people in the state. So Amendments 4 and 5 have been buried so deep in citizen rejection they should never come back, said Scott Charton, spokesman for the two Missouri realtor-funded opposition groups, Missourians for Fair Governance and Missourians for Fair Taxation. One measure of the magnitude of the no vote is that it created a mirror image of the majority requirement Amendment 4 would have imposed on constitutional amendments proposed by the initiative. Yeah, I think they would have wanted to have a 60% that you had to pass, anything like it. It would have been really impossible for state ballot initiatives brought forth by citizens to actually pass. And I think that was probably why they wanted to, get rid of that. So Amendment 4 would have required amendments to achieve a majority in every congressional district. All 8 of Missouri's congressional districts opposed both Amendment 4 and Amendment 5. How ironic. Speaking at a gathering with other organizations that worked against the two amendments, Charton said the outcome validated the need for a strong initiative process and taxpayer rights. 2 other statewide ballot questions, Amendment 1 and Amendment 2, were passed easily, each receiving in excess of 75% of the vote. Amendment 1 extends the 0.01% sales tax that supports state parks and soil and water conservation. Amendment 2 will require that all county tax assessors be allowed, be like by 15 points or something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, the only thing people have when they don't trust their elected officials, they start doing these state ballot initiatives.
Yeah.
And when you start messing with that, that's when you really start messing with your constituency. And good on the people of Missouri for voting those horrible amendments out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the lack of trust in elected official, I think that it's incredibly damaging. And we're in lack of trust in the media, the various estates and institutions that are supposed to represent and protect the people and empower the people. People don't have any faith in them anymore. And I think that is a much more difficult thing for us to reckon with. As citizens, I think, and so if nobody trusts each other, nobody trusts the institution. You have a very fearful, sometimes aggressive, but very suspicious electorate and citizenry, and that's going to be a real problem for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're supposed to be representatives. They're supposed to represent your interests, and when they represent other interests, then they're not like representatives.
Super PACs.
They represent big corporations that helping to fund those super PACs. Then the people are going to be skeptical, and that's why those state ballot initiatives are really, really important. Cannabis probably wouldn't have been legalized or at least decriminalized in some of these states without these state ballot initiatives too. I mean, that's just one of many issues that people have in their states, and like these people are too busy catering to like you said, the special interests. So, and
that's how I think that's how we got worker-owned co-ops in Illinois.
That
was one thing that got passed.
Which is very important too. Meanwhile, one of the staying in the Midwest here, one of the states, a Senate race in Michigan that's been people have been keeping an eye on because of so much money. Excuse me, so much money that's been pouring into this race is just incredible. Close to $50 million for a Senate race in Michigan as El Sayed wins critical Michigan Senate primary. That's not him. That's somebody else. So it's still fairly close, but a couple outlets have already declared victory for him. So progressive Abdul El Sayed defeated moderate Representative Haley Stevens for the Democratic nomination for Senate in Michigan. That's according to NBC News and Decision Desk headquarters. A major victory for the Democratic Party's left wing in one of the most pivotal races of the 2026 election season. El Sayed will now be charged with holding the seat of retiring Democratic Senator Gary Peters in the pivotal swing state, the biggest electability test for the party's progressive wing in 2026. Excuse me. The political newcomer El Sayed's win comes nearly 2 years after Trump won Michigan in 2024. Stevens, a former Obama administration official embraced by the party establishment, had argued that El Sayed risks losing the seat to Republican Mike Rogers, who was unopposed for his party's nomination. El Sayed's side contends outsider candidates generate more enthusiasm. Well, yeah, they do these days anyway. El Sayed's victory was extremely close. The public health official turned politician beat Stevens by about 1% of the vote. The difference between the two candidates was less than 15,000 votes. AP reported, with about 99% of votes counted. The race had been heated since State Senator Mallory McMorrow exited on July 5th, making the divisions clear between the centrist congresswoman and a progressive insurgent. Although, looking at the numbers, McMorrow still gained like 60,000 votes, even though he or she wasn't out of the race, or was already out of the race. On Wednesday, today, El Sayed appeared on CBS Mornings and said his top goal is to unify Democratic voters alongside Stevens to collectively defeat Rogers. Again, that was a big money. I believe AIPAC spent about $30 million in support of Stevens, running ads for her and attack ads against El Sayed. And then you had other moneyed interests in there too, which speaks to what's happening in the Democratic Party. We saw this New York, obviously, with Mamdani, out in Colorado and a few other states where these more quote unquote progressive candidates, their message is fine. It's finally being heard. It's not a different message than before. It just seems like as things get progressively worse in this country, people want real solutions and answers. I'm always skeptical of politicians, as you know, but seeing this trend of more actual left-leaning policies instead of this centrist liberal same as it ever was is it seems to be working.
Yeah. And wasn't this the one, was she the one she was like an ultra Zionist?
Yeah.
Up to the point of being a little loony. I seem to recall, and so that absolutely.
She was pretty fanatical about Israel. We'll put it that way.
And in fact, it was today or yesterday, I forget which one, but NPR had a report about diminishing support for Israel in the U.S. among everybody, and we're talking Jewish and non-Jewish people. I mean that this is really. Nobody wants to accept this. What's going on in Israel. And what Israel is doing.
For the first time in a long time, Israel is getting negative support in the United States. Like you said, across the board, it doesn't matter your political stripe. Although Democrats seem to be embracing anti-Zionist policies more than the Republicans, but even a percentage of the Republicans doing it, that's something very, very new. And used to, not too long ago, if you were anti-Israel, that's a wrap. And now it seems like if you're pro-Israel, it's detrimental to your campaigns, which is very interesting to follow and see where that leads for sure.
Yeah. So I guess good luck. We'll see what happens. Now I know some people are saying that this is individuals who are very much with the DNC status quo are saying this is a bad thing, that the Republicans are gonna take it because of this progressive candidate. I'm not so sure at this point.
No, we'll see what the people in Michigan have to say. It's the Republican candidate in that race too. He's big time supporter of Israel. Just saying. Putting that out there. We talked about hot weather across the pond. How about hot political and ideological? I know I butchered that word. Anti-Zionism in the UK. This is interesting too. UK court rules anti-Zionism legally protected belief. Now, before, people were getting arrested for speaking out or speaking up for Palestine, and some of them were even arrested. I believe Palestine Action was one of the group that was designated a terrorist organization. But now you have this. The UK Employment Appeal Tribunal, or EAT, we're not going to call it EAT, that's just silly, declared on Monday, August 3rd, that anti-Zionism qualifies as a protected philosophical belief under the Equality Act 2010. Professor David Miller announced via social media, marking a significant win for anti-genocide advocates. It's coherent to describe as racist an ideology that promotes the establishment of a state for only one race of people in a territory that formerly contained a large number of people of a different race, The court said in its ruling, such an ideology, which supports the migration of members of the first group into the territory with the support of an imperial power to dislodge an indigenous population, could also coherently be described as colonial and imperialistic, the ruling goes on to say. Look at that. Based, as the kids say. This is a public humiliation for the genocidal Zionist regime, whose assets in Britain bullied the university into sacking me and then dragged them into this futile appeal, Miller declared on Tuesday. Thanks to everyone who believed in me and supported me. This is a victory for the whole anti-Zionist movement, he added. The EAT's decision confirms that the University of Bristol unlawfully discriminated against Miller by dismissing him due to his comments expressing anti-Zionist beliefs, upholding the earlier employment tribunal's ruling. A 2024 court ruling determined that Miller's dismissal over his anti-Zionist beliefs amounted to unlawful direct discrimination by the university. Miller served as a political sociology professor at the University of Bristol from September 2018 until October 2021. He was dismissed for gross misconduct due to comments he made on 3 different occasions in February of 2021. Some of his comments reportedly included, the enemy we face here is Zionism and the imperial policies of the Israeli state, asking that Zionism is ended, stating Zionism is racism, claiming that Israel is the cause of anti-Semitism, arguing that Zionism intentionally promotes Islamophobia, and asserting that Jewish student groups that support Israel are a threat to the safety of Arab and Muslim students. The EAT concurred with the 2024 conclusion that Miller's beliefs are eligible for legal protection, and also agreed that Miller's statements from February 2021 reflected those beliefs. Here in the United States, we have this thing called the First Amendment, right? And it seems to be constantly under attack by, those who support Israel, don't want to hear anything about BDS or anything like that has, boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel. And it's not like there isn't proof that's come out of that area to show some of the atrocities that's been happening over and over again. And to say that you can't even voice your opinion on those things is very scary.
Yeah, that is very much so. It's troubling. And again, I mean, I may or may not agree with every point that he makes here, but the very idea that you can lose your job or face prosecution for, again, voicing an opinion or even a well-considered belief. I mean, if you're basically, you're an academic, you can say, this is what I believe and this is why. And then suddenly you're at threat of losing your job or some other kind of sanction. That's very disturbing. So now this has been codified. So he's gone through all of this, and now, well, I guess, they effed around and they found out.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to agree with people's opinions, but or on any subject.
No.
But to restrict their speech is just no. You can't do that. And it's good on the UK court for emphasizing that, and we should give it some consideration over here, those who are trying to stifle free speech on that too as well,
or a free trade, and for that matter, able to be something for another upcoming thing. But I was looking at something, I think it was contractors who want to work with the the Alaska Department of Wildlife and Game. You have to sign something saying that you don't advocate for boycotts against Israel. And it's like, what the heck? I'm looking at, so I want to do a deeper dive into this at some point soon. Maybe we'll get somebody on here and we can talk about it more. But whoa, did that scare me.
James Lee did a video talking about that too. These contracts saying that you wouldn't do BDS against them. And I'm like,
ooh, not good. Benefit the people who are talking about taking away women's voting rights. So I want to, first of all, begin that women getting voting rights was a major challenge, both here and in other countries. Women activists were arrested. They were force-fed during hunger strikes. They were attacked in the streets for getting women's right to vote. Some women were training in jujitsu to protect themselves against male assailants. And many of the people who also advocated against women's suffrage were women themselves. They argued it in many cases that it would have too many people were going to be voting, and that women could be represented by their menfolk. It took women out of their proper sphere. So there's always been an undercurrent of that idea through the beginning of women's suffrage, and there's been a thread that has continued, although nobody up until relatively recently was seriously discussing the idea of repealing the 19th Amendment and taking away women's votes. I also want to make a point, however, that yes, it is the taking away a group's voting rights is not in any way unusual. We've seen it in other countries, of course, but it also happened here in the U.S. When various territories were opened up, when colonization was happening here. In some areas, women did have the right to vote. And then those rights were eventually stripped from them as we got the United States. The United States came together. So nobody should be resting on their laurels. Whole groups of people were disenfranchised at various times. People of color, Native Americans also did not have the right to vote. So again, the right to vote, we need to be mindful of it and we need to protect it. But the modern repeal the 19th kind of sort of got its start back in 2016. What happened was Nate Silver's organization, I think, said basically if women didn't vote, Donald Trump would win the election. And some trolls started in with the repeal the 19th hashtag. And that started getting going. And I think it was, again, it was kind of a troll thing being done for the lulz. And it gave the trolls some pleasure, and it gave some misogynists some pleasure. But I don't think that anybody was taking it tremendously seriously. Were there conservatives at that time that did make comments about women losing the right to vote? I think Pat Buchanan at one point suggested that they might want to look at repealing the 19th Amendment. That was decades ago. Ann Coulter, who is a troll herself, has continues to repeat this, and she's done that. There you are. Nobody really takes her that seriously. You also saw in various, not so much Christian nationalist groups, although there are those, but very conservative religious groups, like you see here, who do believe that women should lose the right to vote. And that did exist, but it was never something that was in public discourse. What has happened since 2016 with this hashtag is we're seeing the Overton window, which is opening wider and wider on this topic. And unfortunately, I do think that there is a feedback loop. Somebody puts this out there. Women should have their right to vote stripped from them. And people, are in outrage and a chorus of outrage, which may come from bots and may come from real people. And then people start having the debates going back and forth, and it becomes more socially acceptable or common to see these debates taking place online, at least. I'm not really seeing it in legacy press. I just don't see that in the legacy press. And I certainly don't see it in communities. It's not, we're not talking about it at bars or coffee shops or anything. So I think it's important to understand that this might be manufactured to a certain extent to create online outrage, but there's not necessarily any kind of a grassroots effort to strip women of the vote in this country. Now, repeal the 19th. That would be to repeal the 19th Amendment. That is a very arduous process. And it would require Congress would have to come in. They would have to propose the bill to a new amendment to strip that. I believe that this has happened once in the U.S., and that was with prohibition, which ironically was a bill that a lot of women supported because they were suffering and the result of drunken husbands. But it really kind of backfired in a lot of ways, and that was eventually. But we did get Malort out of it. We did get Malort out of prohibition. But this really hasn't happened. There's nobody, no legislator, even the most conservative, has proposed this. So I think it's important to keep in mind that while this is very distasteful, and it is reasonable to have some concerns because you have these Christian nationalist organizations who are supporting this. They are trying to run local elections, and they have some influence within evangelical communities as well as very conservative Catholic and Orthodox communities. Yeah, these can be concerns for the people involved there. But do I think that the 19th Amendment at this time is under any serious threat? No, there's no evidence pointing at that. However, there again, we are seeing, for example, signs that younger men are indicating becoming more misogynistic and more, shall we say, conservative about how they think men and women should interact, and this kind of discourse may be feeding that. There was a global research has shown, for example, there are studies out of King's College London and other places. In this study, roughly 31% of Gen Z men believe a wife should always obey her husband, compared to about 13% of baby boomer men. About 33% of the Gen Z men surveyed said that the husband should have the final say in household decisions. And nearly 60% of Gen Z men think that society's efforts toward gender equality or equity is going too far. Again, that is something. They're young, they're influenced, they grew up online, they're being macho. We'll see how long that lasts. But it is a concern because women and girls have to deal with this, have to deal with these attitudes.
There's more, it seems like nowadays there's more of these machismo type conservative pundits too on YouTube and Rumble that's feeding into that as well. More so now than I think there's been in quite some time.
Well, the other thing is that, and you bring that up, because remember when I was talking about a while back, Catch of the Day, on the online coaches, the coaching industry, and you have a lot of these machismo guys out there. They're selling courses and coaching to these young men. They're going to camps to learn how to be alpha men and to get women and all this stuff. And they're charging more and more money each time, a lot more money. So Repeal the 19th can also feed that industry, right? So it's right there. However, I do want to bring up the fact that there are some threats to women's voting rights. Now, these threats do impact other groups as well. And so the big thing that we've been hearing about is the SAVE Act. I don't know if we've talked about this on the show before, that would put the burden of establishing whether a person is eligible to vote on the individual citizen rather than on local election officials. Basically, what you would have to do is you have to bring in documentation proving your citizenship. This needs to be a birth certificate, and we'll go into that in a second, because not all birth certificates will qualify for this, or a passport, a U.S. passport. And a lot of people do not have U.S. passports. And you have to show that with your current ID, and your name must match what is on that birth certificate or that passport. The problem here is that a lot of people don't have their birth names, particularly married women. In the U.S., we have a convention of women changing their names to their husbands upon marriage. Not everybody does it. And I might add that is not a practice worldwide. There are many countries in which women do not change their name, or at least retain their father's names and add on their husband's names. But in the U.S., the convention is to change their name. So this would require a married woman to provide extra documentation of her status, because her birth certificate won't necessarily match that of that on the on her driver's license or anything else that she is showing there. Now, if she can get a passport, that would suffice. But a lot of women don't have passports. They're expensive to get, and they take a while to get. So that is an issue. The other issue is that she may not have able to get easy access to a birth certificate. You have to. A lot of people don't own them; they don't have them. Their parents may have had them, but they don't have them. So you have to go ahead and order that birth certificate, and then you're going to have to order a marriage certificate, for example.
Mhm.
And let's say you got married in another country. That has to go through its own separate validation process. So this would make for a very cumbersome process.
Let me interject real quick.
Yeah.
Talking about those pieces of information you need. It says here, government issued driver's licenses, including real IDs as well as military or tribal IDs, do not satisfy the bill's requirements. So even this real ID that they're trying to push, that doesn't cut it either. And driver's licenses, what it says, government driver's licenses are not part of it.
Because they don't establish citizenship. You can be a temporary resident here,
right,
in the U.S. and have a state ID or a driver's license. There's no restriction on that. Your social security card does not establish citizenship. And so this can get real hairy real quick for people who don't, say, for example, have a passport. And particularly for women. So that is a possibility there. Now, there's another wrinkle in this, and that is oftentimes local election officials are making decisions about whether to accept your paperwork or whether to challenge your vote or that sort of thing. And again, in these local elections, these local races that the media is not shining a light on, and again, local journalism has gone down the toilet. So there may not be somebody there to look into this, but that could also make it harder for, say, married women, women who have been widowed or divorced or have changed their names a few times, and that does happen, to establish their identity as U.S. citizens. And an example of this sort of thing was a guy out in Utah named Kai Schwimmer. He became in his area, he became the deputy election clerk in his area. Well, it turns out that this guy has gone on record as the Mormon Nick Fuentes, and has said that he doesn't, he racist, nasty, racist, sexist, and he doesn't think women should vote. He said, I'm anti-universal suffrage. And here he is working as an election official. And so they said, oh yes, well, we're going to change his title. So what actually happened is that the office changed his title to make it sound less official, but he's still there and working. So that is a potential risk, not only for women, but for people of color, for people, you know what I'm saying? All of that could be happening. And the thing is, if somebody challenges you at the polls, for example, they're not even required, apparently, under the terms of the SAVE Act, your ID could be challenged and you don't have to get a notification. And when you don't get that notification, you have no way of remedying this before you get to the polls. And they can say afterwards, well, oopsie. Yeah. But it's kind of like when you have false information on your credit report, you apply for a job, they check it, and they deny you the employment. Yes, they have to tell you that, and yes, you can correct it, but they don't have to hold the job for you. Nobody's holding the election for you. Now, you could say, well, the person could try early voting, but a lot of places, they want to start ending early voting as well. And they want to start ending mail-in voting in many areas because we don't want people to just show up at the polls. Why? Well, maybe so that they could be intimidated. Maybe so that they can be challenged more easily because they can see you rather than a ballot that's just going through the mail. So there's another very deep concern there. Another thing, and we're talking about that birth certificate, another issue that can come is for adopted people. Because in the U.S., when you are adopted, your original birth certificate is sealed and you are issued a new birth certificate that makes it look like you were born to your adoptive parents. But there will be some distinctive things there. For example, the physician's signature won't be on there. It might the physician's name might be on there, but there may not be a signature because that was on the original, now sealed birth certificate. The other thing is that if you were adopted, say like a year after like a year after you were born, more than a year, I think it is at this point, that birth certificate can and will be questioned, particularly if you want to get a passport. It's not good enough in many cases to get a passport with that, or it used to not be. And people would have to get an adoption decree to prove that they were adopted, but that was already sealed up. And so they had to petition the court for that. So if people have any kind of difference with their birth certificate, that could be an issue. Also, if you're trans and you've had to change your name, and heaven knows what kind of harassment they might end up with at the polling place. So there is when you start adding these layers of documentation, you are layering on opportunities for individuals to challenge the vote and to interfere with that person's ability to vote. I think that is absolutely critical. The other thing that did emerge, and this is another fascinating thing, and this is from the 19thnews.org. Back in 2024, people, there's some indications that there may have been suppressed voter turnout due to fear. What they found was that women and people of color expressed fear about going to polling places. And what I think is critical is that it was fear that was expressed. It does not appear there was any concrete evidence of actual intimidation at the polls. And when that does happen, there's usually gender parity. Both men and women are threatened, but people are experiencing more fear. And again, campaigns like Repeal the 19th and the kind of, again, macho alpha male language that you're hearing, the misogyny may very well, and racism may very well contribute to that. But again, I think
you also have ICE
you have
patrolling
ICE.
These. They said, yeah, we're going to be patrolling the voting precincts. And it's like, gee, I wonder why,
Yeah, exactly. And if they're out on the streets, and again, another reason for mail-in voting, in my opinion, but that absolutely can be the case. So that is a concern. Again, I don't want to overstate that because it does not appear as though intimidation at polling places is necessarily the real threat, but people are frightened by the threat nonetheless. They find it frightening, and I think that's something that does need to be addressed. However, I point out a couple of things. There is some evidence showing that domestic abusers will attempt to interfere with their victims' voting. They might try to withhold with election materials, keep them home from the polls. It's just a pattern of control and something that they might be doing. And so that is a critical thing to keep in mind. So be aware of that. Also, women who are running for elected office can face higher levels of harassment and violent threats. So it does not appear to be at the ballot or the voter level, but if a woman is running for office, yes, she can be targeted in that way. So again, that's, I think, where we have to be aware of the climate, that ongoing talking about Repeal the 19th, racism, sexism online. While I'm all about the First Amendment, we need to be aware that that does have consequences. And there are ways of shutting that down, or at the very least, compartmentalizing it so that people are not trying to operate in an absolute climate of fear. And again, voter suppression is never a good thing. So what I'm going to say is this. First of all, if you are the main threat at this point, I think, to women's voting rights is making it harder for women to vote. So I would advise, and I would say this probably also applies to people of color, anybody who might be challenged at the polls or might have a problem getting their voter registration completed. Get all of your documentation now. That can take time. I know, particularly if you're not living in the state where you got married or where you were born, you're going to have to send in a request. You may have to send in a copy of your current ID. You might have to pay money for this. I know if you're living in Chicago, for example, you can actually go to currency exchanges and you can get a certified copy of your birth certificate, but that may not be possible, if you're living out of state. So you want to get that as soon as possible. You will want to get certified copies. That means a raised seal on your marriage certificates, or certificates. Also, if you were divorced, I would recommend getting certified copies of your divorce decree. You might need that to establish that connection. If you don't have a passport, or consider getting one, and you do have the option for less money to get a passport card, that's not going to help you outside of out of North America. But if you're crossing into Mexico or Canada, the passport card can work for you. I think it's a little cheaper, and that is absolutely an option. But I would absolutely try and get that documentation, save up for it if you can at this time. Get involved at the local level. Even if you don't want to go into political office, you might want to be sign up to be an election judge. A lot of areas really need election judges, and you can get paid. They'll pay you to do it. You get the training. It's a pain in the butt, but if you're there, you're protecting the interests of the voters. Be aware of that. If you belong to an organization that is allowed to have poll watchers, do that as well. You're going to have to get very involved at that level. Get to know who's on the election commission, find out what they are doing, and find out who's working in those offices. If you find out that somebody is working in an office who is expressing misogyny, racism, homophobia, whatever, online, that needs to be challenged. That person should not be in that particular role. And, finally, be suspicious of online hashtag campaigns. I don't think the 19th is going to be repealed unless it's just not, I don't think it's going to happen. But what I do think is going to can happen and will happen is further challenges to voting to make it harder for everybody on the basis of many different things, including sex and gender.
Yeah. And that seems to be the heart of it too, especially with looming midterm elections coming and the threat of the Republicans losing both the House and Senate. Desperate times for them are calling for desperate measures, and these are pretty desperate, trying to keep people from voting that normally would not vote for them, so.
What was surprising to me was looking at some of the early objections to women's suffrage, and it was too many people voting. It was actually just too many people voting. And if you look at some of the Theo Bros, the religiously minded Christian nationalists, some of them will even say, we don't think most men should vote. It should be, white, male, landowners who have kids and who are married, because they believe in the household vote. They believe in patriarchy, which means not just male rule, it's father rule. Mm-hmm. And so, they're looking to actually end democracy as we know it. They don't like people voting.
Yeah.
And that was it was just really, I'm looking at some of the stuff, things that women were saying against women's suffrage. Too many voters.
Yeah. They would say something like, this is a republic, not a democracy. And it's like, well, we still vote. So republic, democracy, we're still voting. And it's that trying to keep people from voting like that is definitely, that's the sign of someone who's scared that their message is not getting through organically, and they have to manufacture some sort of way of holding power like that. Speaking of organic, let's talk about food and our prize keepers here, particularly the poopy salad. Taco Bell is having a time with this stuff. I think they're There, you can get $1 like taco thing or something, but you have to order through their app. You have to jump through hoops. I'm like, really? Come on, Taco Bell. But not that Taco Bell exactly is exactly healthy, but now there's worry in the farmers market about the poopy lettuce. Is farmers market produce safer during the cyclospora outbreak? Is it? As cyclospora cases continue to mount across the U.S., shoppers from Kentucky to Michigan are flocking to local farmers markets in search of safer produce. But are farmers markets actually less risky than grocery stores when it comes to avoiding cyclosporiasis and other foodborne illnesses? Some food safety experts say farmers markets could be a safer bet, though that depends on where the produce actually comes from and the practices of the individual farmer. If you're getting produce directly from the farmer who grew it, I would consider that lower risk, said Kalmia Neal, a professor of microbial food safety at the University of Delaware. Other experts say produce from supermarkets isn't inherently more dangerous and that consumers can take steps, both at the grocery store and the farmer's market, to protect themselves from foodborne bugs. Darren Detweiler, an associate teaching professor of food policy at Northeastern University and author of Food Safety, Past, Present, and Predictions, says he personally favors farmers markets because locally grown produce typically travels a shorter distance, passes through fewer processing and distribution steps, and can offer more transparency about where and how it was grown. But he says consumers shouldn't assume that all produce sold at farmers markets is local. He says he always asks vendors which farm the produce came from, how far away it was grown, and when it was harvested. Detweiler says he prefers if the produce is grown within about 30 miles and sold within 2 days of harvest. Rodney E. Rode, chair of the Medical Laboratory Science Program at Texas State University, says it makes sense that people perceive produce sold at farmers markets as being safer. But he says there is little scientific evidence to back that up. The risk of contamination really depends on how it was grown, harvested, transported, and stored rather than where it's sold, he said. In the case of cyclospora, contamination can occur when human sewage gets into water used to irrigate fresh produce. Yikes, says Barbara Kowalczyk. That word, director of the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition Security at George Washington University. That's one reason locally grown produce isn't automatically safer. A farmer's water and growing practices still matter. A small farm is also not necessarily better, said Don Schaffner, a food science expert at Rutgers. Small farmers often do not have the resources that large operations do, he said. Food safety experts stress that people should continue to buy and consume produce, whether at the grocery store or the farmer's market, despite cyclospora fears. Don't quit eating fruits and vegetables, Rhodes said, but people can take precautions to limit their risk of cyclospora and other foodborne pathogens. Bill Marler, a food safety lawyer, recommends buying intact heads of lettuce and whole fruits and vegetables over bagged, boxed, or pre-cut produce. Centralized chopping, washing, mixing, and packaging can spread contamination from a relatively small amount of produce across a much larger batch. Experts also advise washing produce thoroughly under running water, scrubbing hard fruits and vegetables such as melons and cucumbers, and following other food safety practices such as keeping raw meat and vegetables separate when cooking. Cooking food to an internal temperature of at least 158 degrees Fahrenheit can kill cyclospora. Rhodes said he has been cooking most of his veggies lately and has been washing produce more vigorously than usual. So, yeah, that's a good point. It's like it's farmers markets, your local supermarket or small market, wherever the root cause is the farm itself where it's being grown.
Yeah. And what are their standards and what do they have? And I want to point out about farmers markets. We have a fabulous one down here. I love farmers markets, but unfortunately, they don't all have the same standards for participation. So if some farmers markets, you have to document that, yes, you're growing you are the farmer. And that you're growing this stuff, you're growing your vegetables right here. But some markets, unfortunately, anybody can show up with a load of fruits and vegetables. Oh, yeah, I'm the farmer, with no proof whatsoever that they've actually grown any of this. And they could have gone over to Aldi and, bought the stuff and brought it there. And that can happen. And it has happened. So that's something to be aware of. But again, I think it comes down to individual practices. And unfortunately, even small, and we know this, even small businesses, small farms, small enterprises don't necessarily have better standards than larger ones. By the way, if you are going to be you're washing your vegetables, what you can look for, and you can find them Amazon, other places, there are these gloves that are scrubby gloves, and you don't have to use a brush. You put the gloves on, and you can scrub the vegetables like that with the gloves, and it actually does a great job of cleaning them up.
And also too, as someone who's worked in a few grocery stores, you can talk to the buyers. They have these they have individuals who work on staff who place the orders for various fruits and vegetables. You can go into your fruit and vegetable section of these grocery stores, and a lot of times say, hey, can you tell me where these came from? And sometimes they have it on some of the package type stuff, but the stuff that doesn't have packaging on it like that, you can ask them, hey, where did this come from? And they may not know off the top of their head, but if they're good enough, they can go look on the computer and tell you where it comes from. And you can do your own research too, and then make your own decisions whether you think it's safe enough for you and your family like that too. So.
And yeah, a lot of vegetables, frankly, they taste a lot better when you roast them. Look online for roasted veggie recipes. If you learn how to roast your veggies properly, you're going to have an easier time getting the kids to eat them. They're absolutely delicious, but that can also protect your family at this point. But I think the larger issue is here. I mean, this shouldn't be happening. This kind of contamination should not be happening. There needs to be, the Department of Agriculture needs to get on this in terms of ensuring that there are adequate toilet breaks offered to people, that there's actual adequate toilet facilities that are maintained properly, hand washing stations, all that kind of important stuff. Yeah, this shouldn't have happened to begin with.
No, not at all. Speaking of families, if you want to save some money, a lot of times these states have sales tax holidays. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so some states now have this thing called a sales tax holiday, which is basically what it sounds like. It's usually in the period before going to school, but sometimes they have it throughout the year, where retailers don't charge sales tax. And the types of purchases can vary. They can be school supplies. Sometimes there's food involved. Sometimes it's things like athletic wear, like cleats for kids who are in school sports, gym clothes, that sort of thing can be covered under this. And so you might want to, I've put into the show notes, again, you can go over to Substack and grab that, and you can find out what's going on in your state. If they or even a nearby state, if they have an upcoming tax holiday. But it is a way for you and your family to save some money on needed school supplies, including clothes, athletic gear, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is really cool, and it tells you here the state, what kind of tax holiday it is, the dates for it this year, and the items and price caps changes from last year. And more information links. So, for example, here in Illinois, they have back to school tax holidays, which actually start on Friday this year for 10 days. Clothing, footwear, less than $125. School, art, and instructional supplies, computer supplies. And then last year, I believe, I just moved that. Illinois had no sales tax holiday from 2023 to 2025. Not a full exemption, and local taxes are not exempt. So yeah, look up your own your own state here. Mississippi's was July 10th through the 12th. Clothing, footwear, local school supplies. I know in New York State, or at least in New York City, rather, when I lived there, they had the same thing where it was, but it was all the time that you didn't have like clothing under a certain amount of money, like $125 or something. There was no sales tax for it. And that was like an all around thing. I don't know if they still do that. It says here that they have no sales tax holiday in New York for 2026. But again,
there might be a local one. It wouldn't be, well, they can't suspend on state, but they could if you've got a municipal tax or county tax.
Yeah, it's the municipal sales tax there. Which was really good for a lot of families who trying to save a buck, and God knows we need we need to find all of those savings, especially with everything that's going on these days. So Uber is an interesting company. Uber's strategy for fighting sexual assault suits. What were you wearing? Yeah. What? So a 24-year-old woman logged on to a video conference from her bedroom in Florida on a Friday morning in April 2025 to face a deposition in her lawsuit against Uber. Her driver had already pleaded guilty in criminal court to raping her vaginally, anally, and orally while she was unconscious during a ride in Tampa one night in 2021. Jesus. He was in prison serving a 10-year sentence. The woman, identified as Jane Doe in the court documents, was suing Uber in civil court for negligence, arguing that the company should have done more to screen and supervise the driver, a man with prior violent felony convictions. Publicly, Uber proclaims itself to be a company devoted to handling sexual violence in a, quote, survivor-centric and trauma-informed way, supporting survivors and treating them with dignity. After years of fielding reports of sexual misconduct, the company developed instructional videos for drivers that stated sexual violence is never the survivor's fault. Yeah, those videos do a hell of a lot of good. But in court filings, Uber argued that Ms. Doe had conducted herself in a negligent and careless manner by falling asleep and contributed to causing her own injuries. And it said Ms. Doe's claims of pain and suffering were unrelated to the at-issue incident.
Accident?
Yeah, at-issue accident. I'm sorry.
Accident. I mean,
yeah, oopsie.
Yeah,
I don't think oopsie applies here, Uber. Sorry. Now, during her deposition, Uber's lawyer, Taylor Silverberg, zeroed in on Ms. Doe's behavior on the night she was raped. Ms. Silverberg asked Ms. Doe exactly how much Tito's vodka she had drunk, how many milligrams of Adderall she had taken, and whether she had felt regret about mixing the two. And she asked Ms. Doe what she had been wearing. Can you describe the dress? Ms. Silverberg said. Were you wearing heels or boots or flats? What? Ms. Silverberg also probed Ms. Doe's childhood, asking if she had felt abandoned by her father or degraded by her mother. Who is this? Is this the lawyer? Uber's a lawyer. Jesus.
Yeah.
She pushed Ms. Doe for details about consensual sex and asked whether she had previously been sexually abused or had sex in exchange for money. That is when her lawyer ended the deposition. I am not anywhere near done, Ms. Silverberg protested. It's her lawsuit, and I have an obligation to defend my client to the best of my ability, she said. Later, she offered an apology. I know this is hard for you, Ms. Doe. I'm sorry. I really am. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Does it say down here? It doesn't really say what. I guess that's it. So,
shoot.
You know, as a dude, even I know that that is some bullshit right there. Trying to put this on her, someone who was sleeping in a car. It doesn't matter if she was like on Tito's or Adderall, or she just smoked a whole bag of weed or something. She's asleep in the car. That doesn't give anybody the right to do anything to her, period, much less violate her to such extremes like they did.
Well, and I mean, among other things, this guy confessed. I mean, he's in jail. I mean, he's in prison right now. This is, and the lawyer's calling it an accident. That anything she did was not related to the accident. First of all, this is not an accident.
No, not
Your
at
penis
all.
does not end up in various orifices on another person's body by accident. It just doesn't work that way.
Maybe they should ask the driver if he was drinking Tito's and taking Adderall, and maybe that's how it accidentally got in her. Oh my God.
I'm sorry that this happened. In any case, that it cut off, but basically that this is an ongoing process, an ongoing thing with Uber. Now, corporations will do anything to weasel out, and they will use whatever tactics they can to minimize their company's role and to make it look like the victim bore most of the responsibility. And that's I've heard some really dastardly tactics that they use. This is also, though, an intimidation tactic. I mean, the lawyer asked this woman, have you ever performed sex for money? She's calling this woman a sex worker. And again, not that it had anything to do with, he's already been convicted.
Yeah.
He pled guilty. I mean, and he's got this history. And what she's trying to do is she's trying to bully the victim. And then, of course, and again, I'm all for the New York Times talking about this, but it's again another layer of intimidation. That if I am sexually assaulted, and men and women are sexually assaulted, if a man or woman is sexually assaulted, and I try to get some compensation for my injuries or time off work or just to send a message, this is what can be done to me. The person has already, and in this case, it's not, this woman was not suing over an accusation.
Right.
There was a conviction here. There was a conviction here. And so I'm telling people, these rideshare services, and it's really sad because we tell people use rideshare, don't walk home alone, use rideshare. Well, maybe if you walk home alone, at least, at least you're not in a contained space with a violent criminal. But we're also telling people if you're going to drink, don't drive. And so wouldn't that mean then that we want to have the safest means of getting people home? Say, public transportation, that might be an option. The possibility of what we used to call it paratransit for people who were disabled, but there are also services, Dial-A-Ride, that were operated by the communities, by the city or a township or municipality. There are some possibilities there. But this is extremely disturbing to see the fact that Uber is clearly not vetting their drivers as they should be. And number two, when something bad happens, everything gets turned onto the victim, and that they are countenancing this kind of approach to victims.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And there are good lawyers, and then there's some real slimeball lawyers like this one here who are trying to weasel any kind of blame away from their corporate entities like that. And good on this woman who's fighting this, and hopefully she wins too.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, to send for herself, but also to send a message like, look, giving people videos to watch. That's the same thing they do with ICE. It's like when ICE beats up people or kills people, they're like, we're just gonna retrain them. It's like, no, get rid of these people and hire quality people. I mean, I know it's Uber. You're not hiring like fancy limo drivers or anything, but at the same time, you can vet these people. And this guy already had a criminal record for violence. So that in and of itself should have been like, case closed. This person should win this suit. So, speaking,
I'm sorry, Chuck made a point here. Rideshare companies would rather use any reason to support turning their entire fleet into self-driving vehicles.
Yeah, there's that. There's that too.
Good point.
I would also say too, if you're in a place that you have a friend that maybe not with you, maybe doing something else. I know it kind of sucks for them, but it's like if you can get a ride from somebody that you trust too. If you're feeling not so secure about some of these rideshare programs, that would probably be something beneficial as well. So, I mean, there are options. Public transportation in your city, it can be very, you have to take like 2 trains and a bus or some ridiculousness. So it's good to at least explore those possibilities and at least have those as options in case you're not feeling very comfortable, especially with somebody in the car that, is,
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of lawsuits, as we get to the recurring tide, they Mamdani over in New York City has the city run grocery plan. I think it's once a month. It's like they charge like they charge like 30% under retail or something like that. And some local stores are not having that. As a group ready to sue New York City over its city run grocery plan. New York City's plan to open 5 city-run grocery stores, 1 in each borough, may soon face a lawsuit, according to multiple reports. The Multicultural Business Coalition, formed this year to fight New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's grocery store plan, comprises 50 chambers of commerce representing Asian, African, Caribbean, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, and Jewish-owned businesses in New York. The board voted to file a lawsuit against the plan. The MBC wants to raise $1 million to fight the city-run endeavor and said it will send a letter to Mamdani's office regarding the lawsuit. The mayor refuses to meet with the coalition, according to the MBC. A portion of the $1 million will also go towards raising awareness about how small grocery stores struggle to keep up with rising rents and taxes. Mamdani's stores will not pay either. The city has chosen sites for 2 of the 5 locations, including one in East Harlem's La Caeta, where 5 bodegas operate just a few blocks away. Groups opposed to the plan say that presents a problem. Mamdani said the city-run stores, which will not offer hot bars, alcohol, cigarettes, and lottery tickets, do not aim to compete against the bodegas or grocery stores. The city announced Monday that the city-run grocery stores will price certain items, including produce, meat, bread, and milk, at 30% below average market prices. Other items that will be offered at a 30% discount include seafood, pasta, yogurt, butter, nuts, rice, and beans, the New York Times reported. The stores will price the remainder of the products at market rates. In a news conference Monday, Mamdani said the discounts could save shoppers about $90 per month, or more than $1,000 per year. So to the argument about the bodegas, so like the small corner stores, people, more often than not, people don't go grocery shopping at the bodegas. It's more of like a convenience store, right?
Yeah.
You want to go pick up, some of them sell alcohol, but some of them, sell cigarettes and stuff like that. And that's perfectly fine. This is not going to affect them. But these smaller, smaller chain grocery stores and even some individual grocery stores could see some serious competition, especially if these city-run stores are nearby. But it sounds like he's not trying to open a whole bunch of them. He's opening one in each borough. And these boroughs are huge. So it may affect that particular neighborhood where the city-run store is, but the rest of the borough is not going to be going to this one place to shop. They're going to be shopping in their own neighborhoods and places like that.
And my guess is, I mean, I'm not sure, but my guess is that these city-run grocery stores are probably going to be trading mostly in staples, things that, but one of the nice things about the bodegas or these smaller grocery stores in the ethnic communities is they have ethnic specialty goods. And I have a feeling that the city-run grocery stores are not really going to have a whole lot of that. I mean, they may have tortillas or something like that, but they're not necessarily going to have lime pickle, or
right.
Relatively not commonplace food items. So I think that's going to be there. There also the bodegas. They have their cigarettes, their alcohol, which is probably not going to be at these stores. They have their sandwiches. They have the cats. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a little, I'm not liking this. And as I said before, with the whole thing with farmers, just because an enterprise is small does not necessarily mean it's terribly ethical. And I mean, I think it's important that, yes, I do support small business. I absolutely do, but I hold all businesses to the standard of, you treat your workers right. You're running a safe operation. And so I'm not necessarily just going to side with small business owners just because they're small business owners. Again, we're talking one store per bureau. My guess is that they're going to be mostly focusing on staples. And this could actually this could actually do some good things for the bodegas and the smaller shops if they say, okay, we're going to pivot a little bit and we're going to stock more ethnic specialties. Because you're not going to be able to get that at that big store. That could be something that could work very well for them.
Well, they're also putting these city run stores in food deserts,
right?
Where it's like, well, what do you? And that's where you only see like the bodegas. It's like you can't get a lot of your big staples at these bodegas, and if you do, the price is going to be way higher than it would be at like a supermarket or even a smaller market like that. My thing is, it's like, okay, you want to talk about the high rents and leases and stuff like that. Maybe raise your $1 million, get together and go after these landlords that are charging you these exorbitant fees for these rents and leases. And then the landlords will say, well, my property taxes are sky high, and it's always just this chain of complaints. And some of them are legitimate too, but some of these landlords are ripping these stores off, and they should probably take that into consideration as well.
There's a lot that needs to be taken into conceration here, and I think this is about optics.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can get cheaper food, I mean, God love it. That's at this point. Yeah. Like you said,
people need it. Yeah.
Yeah. It may not always be a good thing having cheaper prices, but I think in these food deserts, they definitely could use it, because then otherwise they have to spend money on transit fare or gas to go to these other places where the supermarkets are. And a lot of times it's like you're spending so much money, you're not saving any money on food like that. So
well, and with what's going on with the screw worms down in Texas and Oklahoma and all that, you've got drought, wildfire weather conditions, we've got the Strait of Hormuz. There are disruptions to food supply chains.
Yeah.
That have to be taken into consideration here. So anything that can be done to make sure that people can afford groceries, I think is a good thing.
Definitely. Bad news if you want a robot from outside the United States, and I know we all do, as the new FCC rule bans foreign-made robot devices, including robot vacuum cleaners. Dun, dun, dun. So this is probably going to do some weird shit here in just a second. There we go. Let's get you out of there. Okay, so the FCC on Tuesday added speaking of food, added foreign produced advanced robotic devices and connected power inverters to its covered list, a move that can block new models from receiving FCC authorization to be sold or imported in the U.S. Under the new guidance, an advanced robotic device is defined as a mechanical mobile device, including autonomous mobile robots, humanoid robots, and quadrupeds that are capable of locomotion, obstacle avoidance, navigation, or movement on the ground, operates at a distance from a human operator or supervisor, weighs more than 4.4 pounds, including any dock or ground station, and includes both a sensor that perceives its environment and wireless or wired network connectivity. The guidelines cover newly foreign-made robot vacuum cleaners, according to the FCC. They specifically highlighted humanoid and quadrupeds in its announcement, but the definitions are broad enough to include a wide range of robotic devices, from vacuums to delivery robots to robotic lawnmowers. So if you have a robot vacuum already, you're screwed. Get out of our country. No, I'm kidding. The ban applies to new foreign-made robot cleaners, so there's no need to worry if you got a Roomba or other at-home cleaning devices already. iRobot, which makes Roombas, was recently acquired by Chinese manufacturer Pixia, or Shenzhen Pixia Robotics Company Limited, after the company filed for bankruptcy in December last year. Other popular vacuums such as Dyson, Dream, Evocax, and Roborock, I like that name, Roborock, have manufacturing in China and Malaysia. We're aware of the FCC's recent action and are working with them to better understand its implementation and potential impact. So one of the few, Matic is one of the few companies that says it makes its robot vacuums in the U.S. So I guess that's cool.
A deal half a world away felt right here tonight.
See,
an end to the war in Iran.
Hang on a second. I am not a big fan of stuff that plays by itself. That's just
it's really annoying. Yeah.
So why'd they do this? According to the news release, the new bans come following determinations made by a White House convened executive branch interagency body with national security expertise. The body determined the foreign-made products pose an acceptable risk to, quote, national security. Take a drink. And the U.S. and the safety and security of U.S. persons and every man and child and woman and child and old person and child on the planet, apparently. In their determinations, national security agencies referenced, among other things, unacceptable risks, including that these devices could create supply chain vulnerabilities that could disrupt U.S. economic and national security. There it is again. And create a cyber security risk that threaten American critical infrastructure. Okay, that's enough of that. So these robots, this sounds just plain and simple. Let's punish China. What do you think?
I think so. I actually don't like them. I've had two, and neither one of them is of any use whatsoever. They basically end up getting stuck places, and then you have to go and fetch it out. Usually they end up being stuck in some very inconvenient places. It have never worked for me. I had one that ended up hiding itself up the ass end of my recliner. And I ended up, I couldn't find it anywhere. I'd heard it somewhere, basically kind of beeping at one point during the night. The next day I woke up, nowhere to be found. It took me a couple months to find it. And it was actually had climbed up into the back end of my recliner. And I finally like, okay, it can't have gone. Yeah, I was looking everywhere in my place. And I finally just started going underneath all, I was looking underneath the stuff, underneath my furniture. It wasn't there. It had actually gone into the recliner. It was an old recliner, and it had a fabric there, and it had actually gone up into the recliner. Yeah. That's and awesome. So I just said, forget this. I'm done.
I know, right? It's the old where'd I put my car keys kind of thing. And it's like they end up in the weirdest places. You're like, how the hell does keys get over there? So now you're like, how's my robot get up over there? Yeah, those things are kind of stupid anyway. Yeah, you put more work into moving those things, like, okay, getting them, you might as well just vacuum the stuff yourself, you know.
Yeah, you might as well just do it. It's like, it's pretty easy. And as for the whole thing with China and all that, yeah, it's amusing to me that people wanted us to get lower prices, cheaper goods, and to consume, and now we're reaping that. We're reaping the fruits of that.
Yeah, that's funny how that works out like that.
Yeah.
So flock cameras, I watched James Lee's videos about these flock cameras and the Axon cameras too, how some communities are getting rid of flock cameras, but they're going to these Axon cameras. So it's like out of the frying pan into the fire. But also, these flock cameras are being used for nefarious things like, tracking exes. Yeah. It's like, oh, didn't see that coming. What, the human element? You get the cameras that can see everywhere. No, you never see that. A Texas deputy searched 83,000 flock cameras to track down a woman who had an abortion. It was 2026, y'all. We're in 2026, just to remind you. So May 9th last year, a deputy with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office in Texas queried Flock Safety's nationwide license plate reader network. The reason entered into the search log, according to documents obtained by 404 Media, had an abortion, search for female. That's all in quotes. That single query swept across 83,000 cameras in over 6,800 law enforcement networks, including cameras in Washington and Illinois, states where abortion is legal, and protected. A small county Texas deputy hunting for a woman suspected of self-administering an abortion had just searched a surveillance apparatus stretching from Spokane to Springfield. No warrant was required for the search. How a data potluck built a national dragnet. Think a flock system like a potluck. Bring your cameras to the table and you eat from everyone else's plate. Over 75% of the 5,000 plus law enforcement departments using Flock share their data into the national pool, according to NBC News. That sharing grants access to National Lookup, a tool letting any participating agency search all shared networks at once. San Jose has a Flock problem that illustrates how communities are pushing back against this expansive network. Here's what that means in practice. Flock cameras capture your plate, timestamp, location, and direction of travel, all stored in a central cloud. Agencies trade their data for broader search access, and warrants are typically not required. A Texas deputy can query cameras in your state without your state's knowledge. Search justifications are free text fields, often just investigation, in quotes. This one was unusually candid. ACLU of Massachusetts records show over 450,000 searches hit Flock's national database in a single 30-day period. In spring of 2025, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has called National Lookup a repurposing of infrastructure sold for stolen car recovery, now aimed at people seeking reproductive care. Yeah. After 404 Media broke the story, Sheriff Adam King and Flock Safety insisted this was a welfare check, wink, 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 for a missing person. Flock called the reporting false and clickbait. Documents and court records obtained by EFF, tell a different story. Deputies discuss potential criminal charges with prosecutors, and the investigating officer's own affidavit contradicts key claims officials used to justify the welfare framing. Kate Bertash of the Digital Defense Fund told 404 Media that anti-abortion activists have long secretly tracking users' recording plates at clinics, and large ALPR databases now make it easier to cross-reference and track those vehicles over time and across state lines. Living in a so-called safe state offers little protection when the surveillance grid has no state lines. Representative Sylvia Garcia and Raja Krishnamurthy sent a letter to Flock CEO Garrett Langley in August 2025 demanding answers on warrant requirements and data safeguards. No comprehensive federal law governs any of it. The real problem isn't one deputy's blunt search term. If he had typed investigation instead, nobody would have ever known. That's scary in and of itself too.
Yeah.
As we say, like these, not only just looking up stuff like this, you're seeing cases where law enforcement officers are searching up exes and seeing who they're dating and that sort of thing. And it's just very, very dystopian. And so some of these towns that initially got these Flock cameras are now voting them out. But some of them are voting in another service called Axon, AXON, which does the same thing. So it's like when you see a community getting rid of Flock, that's great. But what are they replacing it with something else? That's another matter entirely.
Well, like that kid in Utah who was put into the election commission, and then they changed his title once it came out that he was opposed to universal suffrage. And in this particular case, the woman was targeted for this by her boyfriend, who has since been, I believe, either arrested. I don't know if he was arrested. I believe he was arrested for domestic violence. She'd had a blood clot. And that's what he reported. That's when he reported this. It turned out that she had an abortion, but it had been weeks prior. And he saw a blood clot and decided to report her, thinking that she had just had the abortion when in fact she was just passing a blood clot. He's been charged with domestic violence. The sheriff in this department actually has been arrested and charged with some, I think, sexual harassment and whistleblower violations and lying to a grand jury in another case. But this is what you have. They have again, these small time departments. If you know somebody, boy, you can wreak havoc on their lives. But this is actually, again, this is terrifying. She's trying to get reproductive care, and some, Barney Fife, who doesn't like abortion, can go after her, and at the very least, make her life very, very difficult while the gears of justice and the courts work this out. This is one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen.
Yeah, and a lot of these cops too don't have a good reputation when it comes to violence and domestic violence, that sort of thing. Already, now you're giving them a tool to stalk their exes even more than with the means that they have already at their disposal. It's that's why we need to see real changes in these police departments across the country, that are, instead of like buying all this military equipment for protests, having these armored chests and tanks and stuff like that. Safety, yes, that's all well and good, but maybe not hire psychopaths, and definitely don't give the psychopaths access to the flock cameras.
Just a thought.
I could be out of line there, maybe I don't think so though. So some political government news here for you, as Trump administration will close 5 smaller U.S. consulates in Africa, Asia, and the Western Hemisphere. But it's interesting, the consulates that he will be opening, or at least the government will be.
Yeah.
So Trump's administration has informed Congress that it intends to close 5 smaller U.S. embassies, consulates, and other diplomatic missions in Africa, Asia, and the Western Hemisphere, even as it steams ahead with plans to reopen shuttered posts in Libya, Syria, and has reopened the long-closed embassy in Venezuela. In separate notices sent last week to lawmakers, the State Department said it would close the U.S. embassy in the Caribbean island of Grenada, the consulates in Nagoya, Japan, and Medan, Indonesia, the American presence post in Winnipeg, Canada, and an embassy branch in Douala, Cameroon. The closures by the Republican administration are expected to save the government roughly $4.4 million per year, although that's going to be offset by the ones they open. According to the notices obtained by AP, but the missions to be closed employ very few people compared with others. For example, the embassy in St. George, Grenada, the consulate in Nagoya have only 1 American staffer and 5 local employees. The consulate in Medan has 4 direct hire U.S. staffers and 47 local employees. The Winnipeg Post has only 2 local staffers, and the embassy office in Douala has only 14 local staffers. So the State Department announced plans earlier this year to permanently close the U.S. consulate in Peshawar, Pakistan, which was the closest diplomatic mission to Afghanistan since American troops withdrew in 2021. And as we said, the steps come as the department moves to streamline its operations at home and abroad while investing millions of dollars into reopening embassies in Caracas, Venezuela, Damascus, Syria, and Tripoli, Libya, all 3 countries there with U.S. presence. Venezuela now with the newest one with American presence there too. So yeah, that's probably the most important part of here is the ones in Venezuela, Syria, and Libya being opened.
And the ouster of the autocrats will, in one case, involved an outright kidnapping.
Yeah, it's funny how certain people that have war crimes charged against them, you can't arrest them. They have diplomatic immunity. But by golly, we can go down and kidnap your leader and bring him back to the United States and put him on trial. It's funny how that works out like that. That's really amazing stuff there.
Yeah, I when I saw that story, I thought, well, okay, let me have a look at this. And they were saying when they're closing down these tiny, all right, whatever. 4.4 million doesn't sound like a whole lot when compared to other budgets, but when it's not the military. But then when I saw where they were going to reopen, where they were going to redirect those funds to reopening, I said,
Yeah, couldn't have done that before without any U.S. intervention. But by golly, that's the American way. We'll intervene and we'll get our consulates open for sure. All right, now it's time for a new segment of ours, the old bottom feeders, these scammy people. We don't like scammers around here. This one, AI's taking people's jobs, including the scammers. As AI scammers outperform humans when it comes to building trust. There he is. Hey, buddy. The notion that scammers can use AI to sharpen their deceptions, polish their language, and lubricate their banter with victims is now a reality for anyone fighting the fraud operations that steal tens of billions of dollars a year worldwide. But can AI fully replace a human scammer, autonomously building the web of deception leading up to the fake investment that defrauds the mark? One study's experiment suggests that it can and may even be able to carry out the majority of that long con more effectively than humans. I know you see these videos on YouTube with somebody's like, pranking a scammer and they get all upset. It's like, I told you to don't go again. They just start yelling and stuff. It's just so funny. Researchers from 4 universities, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham in India, Foscari University of Venice, the University of Melbourne, and Ben Gurion University of the Negev, carried out a broad study on the use and potential of generative AI chatbots in the growing scam industry, centered around a form of fraud known as pig butchering. Ah, yes. Text-based romance scams that eventually shift to fake crypto investments that steal as much as 6-figure sums from victims. In their study, the researchers pitted AI chatbots directly against humans in a simulation of the scamming process, or more specifically, the long trust-building conversations that eventually lead up to soliciting a fake investment from the scam's target. They found that the relationship establishing stages of the scam, the stage that in real-world scams typically represents the longest part of the interactions with the victim, often stretching to months, an AI chatbot performed remarkably effectively, successfully impersonating a human and by some measures outperforming the real human scammers in their experiment. After a week of talking to 22 test subjects who were recruited to unwittingly serve as victims, the chatbots and human scammers were assigned to ask the victim to either download an app or play an online game as a proxy for their willingness to fulfill the scammer's request. Nearly half of the test subjects fulfilled that request for the AI chatbot, while fewer than 1 in 5, fewer than 20% there, took the bait when talking to a human. The subjects also graded their level of trust with each person they were texting with and gave significantly higher scores to the AI bot. That suggests, the researchers argue, that AI chatbots could soon take over much of the scam process as fully independent fraud agents, even replacing the staffers, often forced labor human trafficking victims working in scam operations primarily across Southeast Asia. To avoid triggering the safeguards built into large language models to detect scamming, a human scammer would take over the conversation in just the final stage of the process to direct the victim toward a fake investment app or website. By having the full first stage of the scam performed automatically with LLMs at scale, you bring the victim up to this point where they have a very high level of trust. Then by transitioning it over to the human scammer at the end, this completely bypasses any vendor safeguards, says Yisrael Mirsky, a computer science professor at Ben Gurion University of the Negev, focused on AI security, who led the research. With relatively little effort, we are able to make an agent that can outperform a human at building this exploitable emotional trust. Yes, and AI chatbot seems to be like a new thing that's been popping up. People get, they use like their chat GPTs as chatbots, but there's also the specialty AI chatbots that with different scenarios, they have different stories and stuff like that. And I could see that. I could see AI chatbots, especially people who tend to be very lonely.
Yep.
And a human can only have so much patience with another human, whereas an AI chatbot keeps spitting that out all day long.
And doesn't get fatigued. It doesn't get annoyed. It doesn't have, the cognitive biases that the human brain has. Yeah, absolutely. And it's very disturbing. The other thing is an AI chatbot can't be arrested. So eventually, yes, I mean, there's liability, criminal liability and civil liability somewhere, but you can also pass it along. You can pass the buck on that a pretty long way up. I mean, particularly when a lot of these bots are based in other countries. Yes, there is possibility for international intervention and prosecution, but that's hard to do. It's hard to do as it is with human beings. With chatbots, then you're trying to determine jurisdiction. Where was this operating? And so absolutely, this would become very, very easy to scam people. I got to tell you, and as you pointed out, Uncle Moore, a lot of people, they do connect with these very deeply because, again, they don't lose patience. They're kind, and a lot of the AI models are put together to blow smoke up your butt. They're to be kind they're to support you and be supportive and kind and validating no matter what you're saying. And that has gotten people into a lot of trouble, and particularly with this kind of fraud.
Yeah. And again, I tell people, look up these scammer videos where the people are out scamming the scammers, and then the scammers are on the phone and they're just so irate. And because they'll say, okay, now I want you to put this money into this account. Oh, you want me to keep the money? No, that's not what I told you.
I remember once the scammer said, he was screaming, "Do you have a dog?" And the guy said, "Well, yes." He said, "I want you to go and get the dog and
they get crazy, man.
Oh, I know, they go absolutely, but a lot of them also are themselves point out they're trafficked. They've been enslaved. They're being trafficked, and so I mean, what they're doing is horrendous. But they're none of all of them are doing it by choice, and it's a terrible situation for everybody. And with the AI, first of all, you don't have to feed the AI.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all kinds of limitations with humans that these AI bots don't have to deal with.
Okay, I gotta look this up. Maybe it'll be something for Secret Show, Uncle Warren. Have you ever seen someone trolling an AI doctor?
An AI doctor. I wouldn't be surprised that's out there. So meanwhile, we have the FTC is charging hims and hers with duping consumers over privacy and billing. What is this about? So the FTC alleged in a lawsuit filed Wednesday that telehealth company Hims and Hers Health deceived consumers about both the privacy of their sensitive data and its billing practices. What? I'm in shock. Contrary to its privacy representations, Hims shared its consumer health information with advertising platforms. The FTC, along with Utah and California, alleged in a complaint brought in San Francisco federal court. The complaint specifically alleges that even though the telehealth company told consumers it would not reveal health data to outside companies, their nose grew and poked them right in the face. It shared consumers' lists with ad platforms and its website embedded tracking tools, including the Metapixel, which can transmit information to Meta about people's online activity. In addition to advertising with Meta, Hims worked with other advertising platforms and shared consumers' health information with these platforms as well. The complaint alleges, for example, Hims shared consumers' health information with Snap, not the government thing, contrary to Hims' privacy promises. Many other allegations related to the privacy claim were blacked out of the publicly available version of the complaint. The complaint also alleges that the company misled hundreds of thousands of consumers by charging them for unwanted prescription medication subscriptions without their express informed consent. The government officials claim that Hims and Hers misrepresents that consumers can consult with medical providers about recommendations, but it actually enrolls consumers into plans that charge them for subscriptions almost immediately after they fill out an intake form. Consumers have virtually no opportunity to review the provider's recommended treatment, much less consent to it, the complaint alleges. The company also allegedly makes it difficult for consumers to cancel recurring charges in violation of a federal law requiring businesses to offer a simple cancellation mechanism. Hims and Hers said Wednesday in a post on the tweeters that the lawsuit disregards substantial evidence we provided the FTC following its nearly 3-year investigation, ignores established state laws and industry standards in telehealth, and contorts the law to try to manufacture claims. That's interesting. Projection much? We are confident in our position and will vigorously defend ourselves against these baseless claims, the company wrote. The company also said Wednesday in a website post titled "Our Commitment to Privacy" that its practices are designed to protect people's information. Again, ooh, ow, you poked me in the eye with your growing nose. We separate and exclude information that patients share with their healthcare providers from marketing activity. Configured technologies to prevent the transmission of protected health information, and use measures such as abstraction and hashing to reduce identifiable information, among other protective actions. The company blurted out some bullshit. This in another line of companies selling your data, selling information that you did not want, or just giving it away in some things and trading it. I never heard of Hims and Hers, and now that I know, I'm going to avoid them like the plague.
They advertise quite a bit. I mean, it's one of these telehealth companies, and oh, hey there, doesn't exist. Came here for the Warren, stayed for the Satan.
They always do. Maybe Satan will co-host one day. It'll be fun.
It's disheartening. Hims and Hers, they do a lot of advertising on podcasts. So if you don't, I listen to podcasts, so I mean that may be part of it, but it's just disheartening. I mean, they market themselves as, hey, you don't have to go to the doctor's office. You can do this privately and discreetly. You don't have nurses and knowing what's going on. They don't have people in the waiting room seeing you go in there. But then they just turn around and your privacy is violated in other ways.
Yep. That's why you gotta be careful. Check out these. Don't assume that they're safe in this day and age. Obviously, if you can check them out and check out reviews and stuff like that too. See what other people are saying about them as well. So Trump's being accused of having an illegal scam. Also, water wet, sky blue, film at 11. Trump's meme coin may be an illegal scam. Senator Warren warns she wants the SEC to investigate. Maybe that's the Warren. He's talking about King for the Warren. Maybe it's that one, right? No? Okay. There she is right there. So Senators Elizabeth Warren and Richard Blumenthal are demanding a federal investigation into Trumpy's meme coin, warning that the cryptocurrency may have been used to enrich insiders while hundreds of thousands of buyers suffered steep losses. Oh, my shock face. In a letter sent to Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC Chair Paul Atkins, the senators called on the agency to examine Trump's namesake token for evidence of fraud, market manipulation, or unjust enrichment. We are concerned that Trump's meme coin scheme may constitute an illegal scam. Warren and Blumenthal wrote in the letter. Trump launched the Trump token shortly before returning to the White House in January of 2025. The cryptocurrency briefly reached a market value of roughly $9 billion before falling sharply from its peak. The coin was trading at around $1.48 Tuesday with a market capitalization of approximately $368 million, according to CoinMarketCap. That marked a decline of about 98% from its all-time high above 73. And if you had meme coin then, I hope you sold, because you ain't going to see those numbers again. Nearly 1 million traders lost a combined $3.8 billion on the token through the end of June, according to research by blockchain analytics company Nansen, cited by the New York Times. Entities associated with the Trump organization initially controlled 80% of the token's total supply. At the same time, Trump has reported substantial income from cryptocurrency ventures connected to his name and family businesses. His 2025 financial disclosure listed more than $635 million in income tied to CIC Digital and the Trump meme coin business, according to the AP. The SEC must be willing to enforce the law, even when potential wrongdoers, including those with powerful political connections, Warren and Blumenthal wrote. And there's more here, but you basically get the gist of it. If the Democrat, they're asking the SEC to investigate if the Democrats actually win back the House and Senate this fall. You might see a push in that area too. You know, that's how they couldn't get Capone on murder and all this other stuff. They got him on tax evasion.
Yeah, that's
right?
a fascinating story. Maybe one day I'll do a show on that. But yeah.
So maybe they'll maybe this is their backdoor way of getting Trump. It's like, we couldn't get him on anything else, but this meme coin, that's some dirty business.
Yeah, I think what sometimes happens, I mean, it happens a lot, I think. You see these true crime shows or whatnot, particularly when it comes to financial crimes, is that the people, you know, they could have gotten away with it if they just hadn't gotten so arrogant. They just kind of expand and expand and expand because they get more confident at every step. And if they had just stopped, probably nothing would have ever happened. But they didn't. And, you know, now they're doing, you know, 15 to 20 in the pen. So, yeah.
Well, he's gotten away with a lot of bullshit. It remains to be seen what happens. And this fall should be very interesting, whether you're you believe in electoral politics or not. You know, there's always some crazy time around these parts. So,
indeed.
So let's a little bit of war news for you. As the U.S. has used virtually all of its long-range precision missiles during the Iran war, sources say. Oh boy! But what if Canada invades? You want to stop there? Okay, thank you. What are we gonna do if Mexico starts coming across the border with guns and they're coming to get? So the U.S. Army has used up much of its global stockpile of highly accurate long-range missiles during its 5-month war with Iran, according to 3 people familiar with the data, raising concerns about the military's readiness for future conflicts. The missiles are principally the Army surface-to-surface weapons known as Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATACMS, and precision strike missiles known as PERSM. That's not a thing. The U.S. has used virtually all of these weapons, according to 2 of the sources. The degree to which the military is running out of ATACMS and precision strike missiles has not been previously reported. Yeah, you wonder why, right? We don't want anybody to know we're out of missiles. That would be just bad. That'd be just terrible. Don't tell nobody. The long-range munitions, which cost more than $1 million each, $1 million, are an important part of the military's arsenal, allowing accurate strikes from a safe distance. U.S.-supplied ATACMS have played a key role in the war in Ukraine, allowing Ukrainian forces to attack targets inside Russia. The PRSM is a newer, more advanced generation that will replace the ATACMS, which have a shorter range. The dramatic rundown in precision long-range missiles means Trumpy may have to rely more on riskier piloted bombing missions if he relaunches large-scale attacks on Iran. The sources declined to say how many of each munition the U.S. had left. Trump launched the war jointly with Israel in February, predicting that the conflict would last a short time. And guess what? Magic 8 Ball was wrong on that one. And for those who are like, well, you know, all these military contractors, they can just build a whole bunch at once. No. On average, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but on average, they can probably make less than 100 a year. because these things are, these are very complex munitions, right? It ain't like, you going out, you're going down to the fireworks store and go getting some bottle rockets and, line them up. These are rockets. These are things.
If you want to attack them, that, you've got to get a real attack them.
They're very sophisticated. A lot of them have like multiple warheads. A lot of them have guidance systems and stuff like that. And you can't just like churn them out like you're, buying a sofa at IKEA.
I think that Trumpy has surrounded himself with some of the most incompetent people on the planet. You want to look at your inventory before you go off half-cocked.
Well, that was the thing. He didn't think that was the arrogance of Trump, is like, he thinks everything's going to be over like super quickly just because he said so, right? He said he was going to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. It's still going on. He said this thing in Iran wasn't going to last very long. It's been March, April, May, June, over 5 months. And it's like, you haven't even hurt them. Yes, there are people that have been murdered and killed. Yes, that's been happening, but the structure, the internal military structure of Iran is solid, because
Iran is still Iraning. I mean, it's still functioning.
They've been preparing for 50 years for this shit. Of course, they've been waiting for an idiot like Trump to come along and use up all their weapons.
And now we're sitting ducks.
Yeah, Canadians, come on, take over our country. I want that free healthcare. Well, they have it in Mexico too. Isn't that funny? Mexico, Canada, free healthcare. United States, no dice. So let's dip our toes in the press pool. This is more or less basically a recurring theme, or a recurring story that we've been covering, but I figured I'd stick it in here as now Trump Media's new paid data service goes live, giving clients faster access to Trump's posts. Wow. Okay. You want to spend your money foolishly quicker? There it is. Here it is. So Trump Media and Technology Groups launched its new paid data service on August 1st, providing faster access to to Truth Social posts from Trump and other top accounts on the platform. The new API is designed to give firms a direct, licensed, real-time feed of the platform's most market-moving truths. The launch comes after Adam Schiff and Elizabeth Warren took aim at the news service, urging the SEC to investigate whether the company is violating the law. And basically, we've already told you about what this is. It's just basically they're charging $100,000, thousands of dollars,
$100,000 a month. Yeah,
a month for access to Trump's bullshit, when you could just wait like maybe 24 hours and then you could get Trump's bullshit on Truth Social.
It's, to me, it's very close, if not insider trading. And these are, financial services and whatnot. And we know that, unfortunately, because he is the president of the United States, one of his messages, one of his posts can affect markets and business. And so they're basically saying, if you're among the privileged and you can afford this, we will give you access to the president's statements before they go public.
Yeah. And anybody who's paying $100,000 a month for that service, I know, I think
it's a club and we're not in it.
I think doesn't exist, said it earlier. It's like, if you're that stupid, you deserve to get ripped off or something like that. Yeah. Stupid should hurt real bad. That's what he said. Yeah, that's
how you learn to not be stupid. But
well, yeah, and I guess you only really get this service that actually means anything for another 2 years, unless of course he gets impeached and convicted and booted out of office. Then you're kind of SOL, which for the common person that means, of course, shit out of luck. So more like local type news here with this lawsuit here with Wink. This is a story. The story is not all that it seems, but yeah. Matt Devitt, Wink News, headed to trial as evidence fight grows. Okay. So a jury trial has been scheduled for September 7th, 2027, in the lawsuit between Wink News, WINK News, and its former chief meteorologist, Matt Devitt. The judge will hear arguments on September 9th on gambling allegations, casino record subpoenas, and Devitt's request to dismiss parts of the lawsuit. Wink News is suing Devitt for allegedly violating his contract by building a competing business while employed. Devitt has countersued, seeking recognition that he owns his social media accounts and asking the court to strike gambling allegations from the case. So they're both headed to trial September next year after a Lee County judge set a jury trial date in the station's ongoing lawsuit against its former chief meteorologist. So recent court filings show attorneys for Wink News seeking casino records and other documents from third parties, while Devitt's legal team argues the requests are overbroad, irrelevant, and unduly burdensome. This is one of several issues scheduled for a hearing on September 9th. The judge will also consider Devitt's efforts to dismiss portions of the lawsuit. So Wink News, operated by Fort Myers Broadcasting Company, filed the $100,000 lawsuit in late March, arguing Devitt's termination in January followed a pattern of misconduct and not, as he claimed, a complete shock. Let's see. Before the case reaches a jury, both Devitt and Fort Myers Broadcasting Company must complete mediation by March 29th next year. The court has also scheduled a hearing September 9th on several pending motions, including Devitt's request to dismiss parts of the lawsuit, strike gambling allegations from the record, and limit third-party subpoenas. So during a Congressional District 19 Republican candidate forum in Naples on July 14th, media executive Jim Schwartzel said station leadership informed him of Devitt's termination before it happened. In regards to Matt Devitt, there is a lawsuit. They will probably ask me to be deposed, but I don't have anything. I never sat in his meetings. Was I aware that they were going to terminate him? Yes, they told me, Schwartzel told the audience, noting Devitt's high-profile personality. I own the CW and the Fox television station, of which some WINK News airs on my TV stations, which I pay for. So since I'm paying for the product to air on my television station, they want to give me a heads up. I think it would be the right thing to do. See if the candidate forum wasn't the first time Schwartzel faced questions over Devitt's termination. I'm trying to find here. Do you know what the actual so what actually went on in this case?
Yeah, and this I think has been updated a little bit. But what happened is this: Matt Devitt's been the meteorologist at this station for 10 years. This is in Southwest Florida, an area that's had a lot of weather disasters. The people there in that area trust him. And what I've been following, and I was cued into it on social media by watching people just being very upset about this entire situation, because at a time when weather is going crazy, you want local journalism. Good weather journalism is critical, and you need trust. We've been talking about that earlier. You need trust in these people. So according to what Devitt is saying is that he was, everything seemed to be fine with his job, and then they fired him, and they came up with a list of reasons, which I don't know if they're true or not, whether he is gambling on duty or any of that sort of thing was actually happening. But they decided to sue him because he continued his own social media accounts, which he had when he was working for Wink. These were his own social media accounts, which in my opinion count as marketing for his employer, and it was free. And they've been actively trying to enforce a so-called non-compete when the guy is just continuing the same social media work that he was doing before. And for example, he was also doing non-compensated work while working for Wink, going into various places at schools and community organizations and lecturing on the weather. A lot of weather people do that. That's a very common thing. And now they're trying to restrict him in that. They're retaliating by, talking about his various sins as an individual. Okay. And now it's gotten political because one of the owners of the station who's a political candidate, has come out and said, yes, he knew about it. The other thing that happened is back in January, Newt Gingrich, of all people, got on X and said, where is he? He's great. I love him. Where is he? And now, and that blew up. And so this is just getting messier and messier. So we've got defamation. We've got contract disputes. the termination. And I mean, it's a messy story, but for me, what it comes back to is this is not good for journalism in a number of ways, because the people trusted this guy. And let's say he did have a gambling problem. Okay. If I have a trusted individual in my community who is doing good work, people trust him, which is absolutely critical in local journalism, I might try and take steps like staging an intervention. You know, there are things that I might want to be doing to try and keep him there. And this has blown up into a very expensive case that's looking very bad for the station. It's now drawn in various politicians. You can go follow it on X. It's really something else. And the community doesn't have the meteorologist it has trusted for over a decade.
Now, if he was gambling on one of these prediction market platforms about the weather, saying, "Oh no, yeah, of course there's going to be a hurricane," and he knows a hurricane's coming. Yeah, I could see that, but I don't think that's what was happening.
No, he was going to a casino, supposedly going to a casino before the evening, in the evenings before going later on at night. And again, I mean, the rights or wrongs of that I'm not going to get into, but it is disturbing to watch this kind of pattern, because when the community loses a good journalist, and I believe he, it sounds like he is, from listening to the way that people talk about him, not just Newt Gingrich, who, yeah, I didn't know he was still alive either, Yipper. But that's not good for a community. And if there was something else going on here, that's a problem. Also, the fact that they're trying to prevent him from using his own social media accounts, which he had before, and they were happy to allow him to use that and to promote the station, but now they don't want him to have it. There have been other people on that network who have social media accounts, and they don't have any problem with that individual. It's really a nasty mess that does not speak well for the state of local journalism. And at the very least, if you're going to have a social media, if you have a journalistic enterprise and people have their own accounts, that needs to be very carefully defined in contracts. But I think that there's something else going on here.
And it is Florida too, so of course it's always messed up. Speaking of messed up, time for the clownfish school. And you would think the State Department people would know where countries are.
No, not this State Department.
But not this State Department with Marco Rubio in charge. That kind of, yeah, you kind of know what you're getting. So U.S. government map of Africa mislabels every country at the global conference. I'm amazed they didn't say, okay, this joint here, we got this over here, this guy, calling a country this guy. U.S. government map of Africa mislabeled every country during a State Department presentation at a global conference in Brazil this week, causing a stir among attenders who took screenshots and posted them online. Reuters viewed a video of the presentation given at the AIDS 2026 conference in Rio de Janeiro, which shows the errant map displayed halfway during a presentation about the State Department's new health agreements. Maybe it's part of that Doge thing. They're trying to save money on State Department money to pay these people, and they're letting their kids do it. A Reuters analysis found the image of the map included in the presentation contained an artificial intelligence watermark, an AI so they let AI do that. Come on. The signals it was made with open AI tools. The company said it was investigating the report. The State Department said it took full responsibility. That's rich. For the confusion caused, and that the map had been produced by a team member who hastily changed the slide deck before the event. Yeah, right. The AI probably had nothing to do with it. The map showed Nigeria, where the U.S. currently has several hundred troops deployed, as landlocked in the Sahara Desert. Mozambique, which is in southeastern Africa, was relocated to the Horn of Africa. While how do you say that? You're fancy. How did you say that? How would you say that?
Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah, Côte d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire.
Anytime I hear French words, I have to go into my French.
But you're anti-fancy.
That's right. I am anti-fancy. I am Antifa of the anti-fancy. In West Africa, it was placed on the other side of the continent. And also Chad was placed in Cleveland, Ohio, which was kind of weird because that's not even in Africa. Screenshots of the map first appeared in a Substack post by the AIDS expert Emily Bass and were widely shared on LinkedIn, with one post garnering about 40,000 views. Whoever created and approved this bullshit, I'm sorry, that's my addition there. Approved this slide did not know where countries in Africa are and did not care to check their work, wrote Matt Petit, that's another Matt Petit, who focuses on AI and geopolitics at the Atlantic Council. In the post, the State Department said, "We take full responsibility for the confusion and misrepresentation it caused for attendees, including our African partners." The speaker at the conference was Jeff Graham, the top U.S. health envoy who oversees the initiative known as the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. He did not reply to requests for comment, and I really don't blame him, because I would have been like, really? So they let AI do this. They didn't check the work, and then AI said, "Yeah, screw it. Let's just reorganize Africa." What do you say?
Maybe that's what we want to do. Maybe those are actually dastardly plans that we have. Now that we've kidnapped the leader of Venezuela, and we just want to go in and start carving up other countries. But we have to get our missiles back.
We should hashtag make Cleveland Chad again. If it ever was in the first place. Finally, today we have we have ghost ancestors in our DNA. Science be sciencing, and I don't know if I like this or not, but let's read this. So, new technique pinpoints human DNA inherited from ghost ancestors. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by our history as a human race. So, two mysterious human relatives left their genetic footprints in the modern human genome alongside the DNA of Neanderthals and Denisovans, underscoring the fact that our ancestors interbred with many groups of hominins they encountered over millions of years of evolution. These are the original hoes, by the way. They did not care. While previous research found hints that modern humans had interbred with ancient hominins, in addition to now extinct Neanderthals and Denisovans, a new study by UC Berkeley researchers pinpoints areas of the genome inherited from these unknown ancestors and establishes a timeline. This was possible using a new technique the researchers developed that leveraged hundreds of genomes from modern-day humans to find ancient genealogical relationships. One of the unknown ancestors, which the researchers referred to as a ghost ancestor, interbred with modern humans in Africa prior to 50,000 years ago, before the most recent migration of Homo sapiens out of Africa into Europe and Asia. These genes comprise around 1% of the genomes of modern humans, comparable to the amount of Neanderthal DNA in the human genome. And just so you know, Neanderthals were out of the European area. They didn't come out of Africa. They were the OG honkies. That unknown hominin lineage actually split off from the modern human lineage around the same time that Neanderthals and Denisovans diverged around 800,000 years ago, though they interbred with modern humans earlier. The other mysterious ancestor, what the researchers call a super archaic ancestor, yikes, was a hominin descended from a 1.8 million year old lineage that interbred with Denisovans in Eurasia, likely more than 200,000 years ago. Denisovans later shared some of the super archaic DNA with modern humans through interbreeding with Homo sapiens. And then this goes on here. You can read the whole article here on our Substack. And fun fact, I saw this video about how the Neanderthals went extinct. Basically, humans just literally fucked them out of existence. The thing was, they couldn't, the Neanderthals couldn't. So when you had a Neanderthal who bred with a Homo sapien, that child was predominantly a Homo sapien, with maybe like a small fraction of it being Neanderthal, which explains a lot of the bullshit that happens in Washington and with our current state of affairs. I think that's more than 2%. That's probably like 30 to 40% Neanderthal stuff that's going on today. What do you think?
That could, I mean, it is fascinating. I find this kind of perspective fascinating. I think Doesn't Exist was talking about the Anunnaki. Funnily enough, I'm reading the work of Dr. Michael Heiser, who's talking about the Nephilim and the giants that bred with human women. You find that in the Bible and in the canonical Bible, or what is considered to be the canonical Bible, but there's also the Book of Enoch, which is in the Ethiopian Bible, that talks about this. And the funny thing is, Heiser, before he died, it was a stalwart evangelical. He's not some crackpot. He was a very well-respected scholar who got into this, and he's taking this to look at what sin is and what Jesus did, but it has implications, I think, for a lot of things. So I'm fascinated that you brought this up. And as for, yeah, I absolutely, I think human beings, we just, well, we're horny creatures. And we are always interested in sex. We don't have, women we don't have heat. We don't go into heat. We have, we're always into it. So that doesn't surprise me that this all happened. I also, for what it's worth, and maybe Mundus Ultra, was that your show about? Yeah. Would love to maybe get Marcus on or some other folks on to talk about this sort of thing, because I believe that we've had other civilizations. I think that the history of what we now call humanity is a lot older than what I think we want to think. And I think technology has, we've lost technologies and we've brought them back, lost them and brought them back. There's ebbs and flows that I think we do see in mythology, but that some of this DNA may be giving us some clues as to where that mythology came from. So I'm all about it. But yeah, I mean, if we could get a show on this, I could talk about what I'm learning, and it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We'll do an Anunnaki show. I'd love to get you and Marcus on there, and I think that would be interesting, your perspectives on that as well, because he's a big time Bible scholar himself. I've had him on there before, and you are too. And I think that would be, and I'm just fascinated by these writings by Zechariah Sitchin and where we came from, and these books that were left out of the Bible too, that are like the Book of Enoch,
that are in some other Bibles. I mean, there's not one Bible. I mean,
exactly,
what the Protestants have the King James, okay, but then, the Roman Catholics have theirs, the Eastern Orthodox have theirs, some of the Oriental Orthodox have theirs, the Ethiopian Orthodox, they have something else entirely. And they've got different stories. And it's getting really fascinating. I think it'd be fun to do some shows on that.
We're really starting to question a lot of stuff that's been taught about the history of humans, especially like when you go back to the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which was found these intricately carved stones with all kinds of figures, animals and stories and stuff on there that hunter-gatherers could not possibly have done at the time. And if they had, it's like they didn't have the tools or anything to do that with. It goes back to like 15 to 17,000 years in our past. We'll definitely do. I've been meaning to bring that show back, at least maybe like once a month. So that'll be the first thing we talk about.
I would love that.
It's and that show, it's like, we're not scientists or anything. It's just a fun discussion of it. So if you have a difference of opinion, that's fine. Tell us in the chats. And I'm probably mostly Neanderthal if we're I don't bathe
my
regularly.
DNA testing came back that, I mean, it's a very small amount, but that I had a higher than normal, or not higher than average percentage of Neanderthal DNA. That was done a while back, though. I should probably go ahead and check it again to see if they have more data that could provide more information on that.
I just wish I was a little more hairy, because anyway, that's a thing for another day. Coming up tonight on Extra Bull Live at 8 Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific time. My buddy Robert Moore is coming on. You've probably seen him on some of my shows as a astrophysicist talking about space and all the space goodies. Well, he's got a book now. It's called Mortal.exe. It's his first book. It's a sci-fi fantasy book, and we're going to talk about his inspiration for writing it, what got him in, what's his writing process, that sort of thing. And super cool guy. He's probably one of my oldest friends. I don't say that because he is old, because he's the same age as we are, but I've known him for well over 50 years, and he always brings good information, and he's a swell guy too. So that's going to be tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. And yeah, should be a good time had by all. Of course, I'll be back Friday morning as well for Morning Extra, and Saturday night for the Secret Show. As usual, Lainie, any final thoughts? Anything you want to get off your chest before we get out of here?
Just reminding everybody, this is time to be checking on your neighbors, older relatives, friends who maybe are ill. With this heat coming up, please be aware. If you can, also check with your municipality's Office of Emergency Management. They will often have on their website information about cooling centers and other services. If you know what is going on in your locale, you're better able to help others.
Right on, right on. Thanks everybody in the chats and those watching this in the future. We appreciate your support. We have our donation links down below for our mutual aid. Also, if you want to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, we're up to 106 subscribers. We can always use more. The more the merrier. So the link is right down below here, but you can also go to our link tree, The Undercurrent. Don't forget about our Substack as well for the show notes. And other than that, I guess we are going to say via con huevos. That means go with eggs. See y'all tonight for Extra Bull Alive. Peace out, y'all.
Peace out.